Welcome to this week's episode of Let's Chat with Derick. I am your host, Derick Fage. Excited to talk to my next guest because you know what? This entire interview could go off the rails at any moment. If you know Sandy Sharkey, you know she is one of the best storytellers. Of course, she's a longtime radio personality and has innovated into becoming one of the best photographers I've ever seen. As a matter of fact, behind me, you probably see one of her great photographs that my wife and I have purchased from Sandy over the years. We have a couple of yours. Sandy, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it.
I am so thrilled to be here, Derick. And I just want to say that your comment about the show going off the rails, I can't go off the rails. I can't go on stairs. I have to be very careful right now because I just recovered from breaking 18 ribs and a collarbone. So I can't go off the rails. I have to be very, very...
very still. Okay, well, let's just start with, because as I mentioned in the introduction, you're one of the greatest storytellers. If people do not follow you on Facebook, I'm going to tell them right now and encourage everybody watching, you must follow Sandy, because the things that happen to you happen to nobody else on the entire planet. So let's start with your most recent mishap, the breaking of 18 ribs and a collarbone. What the heck happened?
Well, I'm glad you asked that question, Derick, because I'll try to keep it as short as possible. I was on a mountaintop cliff where there were about 42 wild horses running just below me. And I needed to get not only a really good shot of them, but I needed to pan, which is it's a photographic term. You know, you have your camera go slowly across. And when the 42 wild horses were running just below me, I misjudged the cliff and I fell off the cliff. And then when I got home, but I was fine from that.
Oh, okay.
I just was fine from that. And then I went home and fell down the stairs. So my rib accident was actually stairs in the house. And, you know, it really makes me want to maybe put out a public campaign or something about how dangerous it can be when you're just in your house. Go to a mountaintop and photograph wild horses and stand on the edge of a cliff. No problem. Zero problem.
Right.
Be in your house. And, you know, I really don't know what you're going to do.
Danger lurks around every corner. Perhaps this is a PSA opportunity that we could put out on Rogers. Maybe you and I will talk after the interview and try to think of some way of trying to protect the good citizens of Ottawa while they're in their home. You mentioned photography, but I'd like to talk about, you know, that we've heard the word pivot so much in the pandemic. I'd rather use the word maybe innovate, to sort of re-innovate yourself from radio announcer to photographer. Walk me through that, you know, that time in your life.
So while I was a radio announcer in Ottawa, I was lucky enough to be on the morning show. And what that meant was not only did I have this amazing vehicle to talk to thousands of people in the morning and wake them up and all of that and play music and absolutely loved my job, but it also meant that I was off for the rest of the day. You know, maybe 9:30 or 10 o'clock, I'd leave the radio station. So I picked up my camera and started to photograph wildlife around here. Of course, birds and otters or whatever the case may be. My dog, of course, was the number one subject. And so while working in radio, concurrently, I started really, really, really enjoying photography and getting into photography. And then I went out to the American Southwest and saw my first wild horses. And then that was the end of it. I knew that as soon as my career in radio was going to come to an end, that I would dive into this full time, because seeing wild horses was, you know, a real pivotal moment for me. And I knew that that was going to be my photographic subject, number one photographic subject for the rest of my life. And so, you know, over the last few years, it started as a thing that just brought me joy, catching beautiful images of beautiful wild horses. But deeper, there's many more layers to it, because if you ask me right now what I spend most of my time doing, it's researching and writing letters and advocating for wild horses. That means a great deal to me because right now wild horses are under siege in the American Southwest, and things are kind of quiet up here in Alberta. We've got beautiful. I'm not in Alberta, by the way. I'm in Ottawa.
Right.
Things are kind of quiet. Just to make that clear, because I said
Well, thanks
up
for
here in
clarifying.
Alberta.
Yeah,
I wanted to
that.
clarify that I'm not in Alberta right now. But we have beautiful wild horses there, and right now the government's starting to make some waves about them. So one of the things that I love to do is just be passionate about that and do what I can to advocate for them. And that's a big part of what I'm doing right now.
How did that introduction to wild horses come to be?
Well, the very first time I saw wild horses in my life was about a 5-second glimpse when I was in my 20s, when I was in the Rocky Mountains in Alberta. And then I never saw them again after that. And that was a really incredible thing to see. And I guess it was kind of in my subconscious that one day I was going to somehow reconnect with wild horses. So in 2013, that's when I really started to want nothing more than to travel as much as I could, to find wild horses, to be with them, to study them, to observe them, to educate others about them. And I do, some guest speaking and things like that. And I've become a photographic guide now for wild horses. And I've got a few trips coming up. Fingers crossed, later this summer in beautiful Sable Island, which is the mecca for wild horses. If you're a horse fan, you don't even have to be a horse fan. Sable Island is one of the most magical places on earth.
You mentioned they're under siege in the U.S. Can you talk a little bit about that? I mean, this is a great opportunity for us to, have a platform to educate people. So tell us exactly the circumstances at the moment.
This has been going on for a long, 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 long time. Wild horses have run, the beautiful free spirit, the ultimate symbol of freedom throughout the plains of the American Southwest, in pockets in mountains and desert and forested areas. And when I say they're under siege, it's because they live on public lands, and public lands are used by many, many, many not only individuals who are enjoying the public lands, going for hiking trails and things like that, but various American governments over the years have turned a lot of the public lands over to special interest groups and revenue generating industries like ranching is probably the number one, mining, oil and gas, coal, that kind of thing. So these industries lease the land from the government, and they don't want the wild horses anywhere near what they're doing. And so when it comes down to it, it really, if I could just put it in the simplest terms and in a nutshell, because it's actually a very complex issue, wild horses don't make anyone any money. So they're not a source of revenue. Right. So therefore, they're very low down the ladder, and they are being rounded up by the thousands by helicopter all through the American Southwest. They call them helicopter cowboys, and they chase these herds of wild horses for miles and miles and miles. They round them up. They put them in holding facilities where they pretty much languish there for the rest of their lives. Some are lucky enough to be adopted, but a very small percentage. We want these roundups to stop. We want the wild horses to be allowed to be free and to be, in the only home they've ever known. It means a lot to me. I'm very passionate about it. And thank you for letting me talk about it.
Oh, it's my pleasure. As you know, my wife, Monica, she grew up around horses. So, as soon as I told her I was going to be interviewing you, right away, she said, well, you got to talk about horses. And you mentioned Sable Island. And Sable Island is on our bucket list. And it's great thanks. It's actually great thanks to you, because you really have introduced us to the area. For those people who aren't familiar with it, tell us a little bit about Sable Island and what makes it such a special place, Sandy.
So it became a national park in end of 2013, early 2014. And before that, it was really, really, really difficult to get there. It is still not super easy to get there, but since it's become a national park, and Parks Canada has a mandate that if something is turned into a national park, they have to allow it to be somewhere that people can visit. In fact, I encourage it. But because it's so remote, it's 200 kilometers off of the coast of Nova Scotia. It's very remote. It's prone to fog. It also can have, massive Atlantic surf crashing on the shore. It's 42 kilometers long and 1.2 kilometers wide, and it's home to about 550 wild horses and the largest gray seal population in the world. I partner with a company called Katuk Expeditions. Fred Stillwell is a buddy of mine. He's one of the sweetest guys you'd ever want to know, and he knows Sable Island inside and out. So I've been with him on quite a few trips now, and I'm now a photographic guide. And really, when you get to Sable Island, one of the things that's so amazing about it is that it is pristine nature. And when you think about that, you think, okay, well, there's a lot of places that are pristine nature, but when you really dig deep, how pristine is it? Like, how far is it before you hear mankind or see mankind or see the effects of mankind, whether it be garbage or whatever the case may be. Sable Island is exactly as, it was created. I think it was 10,000 years ago, Derick, but I'm not sure about that. I don't know how old Sable Island is.
I'll look it up later.
I'm not an artist. Okay, look it up later and insert it. Put a bubble at my mouth and just say how old Sable Island is. But the main thing about it is that if you're lucky enough to get on Sable Island, and there are ways of getting there by boat, by fixed wing plane or helicopter, you feel like every stress you've ever had in your life is gone. Like you're on a beautiful sand dune, you're walking along this beautiful beach. There's 40 wild horses over there. The horses have zero fear of you because they have no reason to fear mankind. They are 100% protected by the Canadian government. The wild horse is king on the island, and you are the one who is this tiny, and you have to acknowledge that there's a mandatory distance that you stay from the horses. You don't go anywhere near them. You don't touch them. They are completely hands-off, mankind is, and I always say that people say, well, how can they not be managed? All wild horses are managed by humans somehow. And I say, no, who manages the wild horses is Mother Nature. Mother Nature.
Yeah.
Isn't that an amazing thing? Yeah.
It is an amazing thing for sure. Which brings me to my next question. So, we're living in a global pandemic. You are unable to travel, and hopefully, as you said, come this summer you'll be able to get back to traveling. So, how are you spending your time during the pandemic without the ability to travel?
So what I do is, Derick, every single day I go on the internet and I look up all of the different places around the world that are taking reservations for hotels that have a 100% refund based policy. So I book trips all over the world, and knowing that I can get my money back because they have a 100% refund policy. So that's what I do every day. I book about 8 to 12 trips a day, and then the next day I cancel them all. So that's what
I love this idea. You've got me thinking now. That's an amazing idea.
I don't think the hotels like it that much.
No, they might not. Who cares about the hotels? No, I'm just kidding. I know the hotels are going through a very difficult time.
I'm sorry. I'm not trying to make fun of,
no,
jobs
we understand that.
People are, I'm not. And I don't really do that. I was only kidding. I spend my time, I have been doing a lot of online things. I've been doing some teaching online. I am currently working with a fantastic group of wild horse photographers that are American-based, and we're going to start some campaigns online where we're trying to get into this new administration, the Joe Biden administration, which is going to be, we feel, a lot friendlier towards wild horses than the previous administration was. So a lot of my time is spent advocating for wild horses. And I also try to expand my horizons, and I'm learning a lot now. I think I got to the point where I thought, okay, I know everything there is to know about photography. I've got all these cameras. I have all these lenses. I'm done. I do not have to learn one more thing. Well, no, during the pandemic, I've been learning, I've been going on all kinds of video tutorials and learning all kinds of things that I didn't know before. I'm trying to be, I don't know, more well-rounded than I used to be.
Wow,
I used
really?
to be
Because I
very
find you're
one-dimensional.
quite well rounded. No. In
No,
what
oh, thank
manner?
you. Well, I have put on about 20 pounds since the pandemic, and I appreciate that you noticed that, but
Don't listen, Sandy. We've all put on weight.
I
We've
know.
all put on weight during the pandemic.
I
It's,
really like Zoom
it's
because it's from here
insulating.
up. And you don't know, but I'm wearing my plaid pajamas are the bottom half.
Oh, are you? I'm wearing pajama bottoms too. I won't show you, but
Oh, are they
I'm also
plaid?
wearing pajama bottoms. Yes. As a matter of fact, they are. Yeah.
Oh, that's
I
maybe we
want
gotta
to
come out
talk.
with our own fashion line.
Oh, that's not a bad idea. I think we could. Especially, because we're probably would be great promoters of our brand. What would we call our brand? That's interesting.
Um,
You've got the
Derick
cool
to,
last name.
Derick to dream clothes.
Derick
Then,
to
but
Dream
Derick,
Clothes.
instead of dare to dream, it's Derick to dream.
Yeah.
But then my
Yeah,
name
yeah.
isn't in.
Yeah, we got to find a way to get. Maybe your name is in the logo in some
Oh
fashion.
yeah.
We got to
Okay.
work on this
I'll
off
take
camera.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got some.
It wasn't as good as my idea, but okay.
No, it sounded like a pretty good idea, and then it went downhill. Um, you're talking about your advocacy for wild horses. You've been a philanthropist. It seems like your entire life, Sandy. Where did your community involvement? I know it's almost a natural fit when you're in media and radio and television, but was this something that perhaps your parents, your family handed down to you? Was that important to them, giving back to the community?
That's a really sweet question. I love that question. Thank you. I think that my parents had a lot to do with the way that I don't know, turned out, if that's the way you term it. So in my household growing up, we were 5 kids, 2 parents, a dog, snakes, hamsters, guinea pigs, rabbits. All those animals were in my bedroom, and a lot of time my family didn't know. But so one of the things, my environment growing up was be nice, be nice to other people, treat people the way that you want to be treated, and compassion was a very big part of my childhood. So, if I came in the house with a frog that had been in a snake's mouth a minute earlier, but I got it out of the snake's mouth and brought it in, and its little leg was a little bit sore because he was almost just ingested by a snake, and that's actually a true story. My parents wouldn't say, what are you doing in the house with a frog, and get it the heck out of the house.
Right.
They would really coddle, my appreciation, and they would encourage it. And so compassion, I think compassion is going to be my word for 2021. And the reason I say that is because I think we've lost a lot of compassion. And if you
I agree.
make an effort to have compassion be in your life, it is actually selfish, because when you have compassion in your life and you care about others and you care about living things, then it feeds you and it feeds your soul and it makes you really happy. So you're doing it in a way, you're doing it for others, but what you get out of it is so huge that you're helping yourself to such an immense degree. So I think that when I had the opportunity to be on the morning show in radio in Ottawa, there was a lot of things I loved about that job. I loved the music. I loved, interviewing bands and all that side of it, which is very, the entertainment crazy side. But more importantly than that was, letting people in on, there's a group that needs us right now. We have to rise up and help them. A family whose house burnt down last night, by 7:30, our morning show started at 5:30, and by 7:30 the next morning, we had reached out. We had a banker who had already opened up an account that people could donate to. and the community and taking the calls, and just how much this community will help whenever needed. And Ottawa blows me away like that. I mean, too, you've done a million events, and when it comes to philanthropy, you're absolutely one of the figureheads in this town too, and we're very lucky to have you.
Oh, Sandy.
See how I talked about compassion? See how I talked about compassion and thinking of others, and I ended with you? But no, I really do mean that.
Yeah, it was very well done. No, and Sandy, that's interesting, because I think especially in radio, television, media in general, people are afraid to lift others up around them with the fear that it'll bring themselves down. And I've been an advocate on this my entire career in television. It's the complete opposite, to make sure that you praise people, to recognize when they've done a great interview, a great story, a great deed, even a good deed. I'm part of Kind Canada, which was, started with Rabbi Bolka. There's one of the greatest mentors that any of us could ever have, to be learning from people like Rabbi Bolka. It's just, as you said, it's just so important, and it's so easy, and it's so fulfilling to ourselves. I don't understand why we've gone in a completely different direction for some reason, but I think we're coming back to it. And I think people have used the pandemic in some good ways, right? To think a little more, to have a better understanding, kind of do a little bit of a reset. When you talk to people, Sandy, I know we've all gone through a roller coaster of emotions, when it comes to the pandemic, but, just in the conversations you're having, what are people feeling?
Well, I think it's sounding like we're all coming together on one thing, and that's for sure. And what I'm hearing more than anything else is that, okay, we're tired of this. Can we please move on? Can it please go away? Because I think overall, Canadians have done exactly what we have been asked to do. We've been really good. There are pockets of people that have, got together and demonstrated feeling that their rights and freedoms have been taken away. And I get what they're saying. But overall, I think, we've been listening to our medical professionals, and we've been doing what we're supposed to do. And so because we are doing what we're supposed to do, it feels like, okay, now we need our reward for all of that. And we know that it's coming. We know that the end is near. It's not, quick enough for a lot of us, including me. I mean, I definitely would do the dance of joy down Spark Street Mall in a tutu while eating a watermelon and balancing my Bernese Mountain Dog.
I'm holding you to this. Yeah, I'm holding you to this.
I will do all those things.
This is being recorded.
I will do all those things when this pandemic is over. But I also think people are tired. They want it to be over. They are also amazingly resilient and positive. And, social media can be a very negative thing. We know that. I mean, you and I have both been on the receiving end of lousy things on social media. And I think a lot of that is because people are frustrated and they're venting, and I completely get that. But overall, I find that people are incredible at the word pivoting. They're incredible at figuring out, okay, I'm 8 years old again. I don't have any money to buy a guinea pig. I'm going to set up a lemonade stand at the end of my driveway, and I'm going to charge $20 a glass. So, but I'm super cute. So every time somebody buys lemonade from me, it's going to cost them $20, but I'm going to get that guinea pig. So, we can almost learn from kids the way that how creative they are. But I think a lot of people are being that way. And I'm blown away when I see things that people have come up with, things that people have done just to get past this. I mean, I'm married to a musician, and, a lot of the community in Ottawa, the musician community, is like, oh man, they're down. They've been down.
Oh yeah.
And they're not playing in bars. They're not getting together with their brethren, their best buddies that they, maybe got together and practiced with once a week and did these gigs. So what are they doing? Well, they're doing all kinds of online shows that people are tuning in and they're watching, they're enjoying, and a lot of people are doing it to raise money for local charities too. So we're going to put on a show for you. We're going to make it online. We're going to have a blast doing it, and then someone's going to benefit from it.
Sandy, I mentioned off the top that you're such a great storyteller, and you've had so many interesting things in your life. You've been on game shows. You know, you met Bruce Springsteen. He invited you backstage. Is there a story that everybody always says, you know, if they've heard it before and they're with some new people, they say to you, Sandy, you must share this story. What story comes up most often for you?
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. That's really interesting. So, oh my goodness. You know, okay, so I have so many that it's hard to narrow down to one. But I think the Bruce Springsteen story, the Bruce Springsteen story might just be one of my favorites, because I was so innocent, and it just, like, all the pieces of this hilarious day just all fell into place. And then
Okay,
on
I'm
July
just going to stop
20,
you 1 second
yeah,
because we have 2 minutes left. So you're going to just
okay,
summarize this one for me, okay? So go
okay.
ahead. Sorry.
So meeting Bruce Springsteen in Toronto and then being in a hot tub with him, because of where I met him was actually at the swimming pool at the Hyatt Hotel. So he invited me to go in the hot tub with him. So that was really, you know, pretty much the first thing I think about when I wake up every day, much to Rob's chagrin, only because
Yeah,
he wishes he was in there in the hot tub too. With Bruce Springsteen. I mean,
of course.
anyway.
I'd want to be there. And
Who wouldn't?
and if I remember the story correctly, he actually invited you to go see his show, to go backstage, and you didn't take him up on that, right?
After I was in a hot tub with him for about an hour, and then he invited me to the sound check. And I said, thank you, but I'll pass. I appreciate it. And the reason that I said that was because I pretended the whole time I was in the hot tub with him that I didn't know who he was, because we didn't talk about music. We talked about the Blue Jays. We talked about the weather. We talked about things that two people would just talk about. And then he invited me to a sound check. And then I'm like, what do I do? Because I'm pretending the whole time I don't know who he is. What do I do now? And then in order for me to keep this ruse going, how could I all of a sudden say, yeah, sure, I'd love to come to a sound check? What I should have done is just said, what do you mean? What's a sound check? Who are you? Anyway, so no, I didn't go. And, you know, to this day, I still think everything happens for a reason. There's a reason why I didn't go to the sound check. I don't know what it is exactly.
None of us do, Sandy. None of us do. I want to encourage everybody, again, to follow you on social media. They can find you, of course, on Twitter, on Facebook, Instagram. They can follow your incredible advocacy. Of course, you've got your sandysharkey.com website, and it's been so much fun, Sandy. Thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it.